Hello and welcome to the NF Show, NF Magazine's official video podcast. I'm your host for this week, Evan Campbell, and we have a special co-host. He's been gone for over a month, and I'm happy to introduce the return of my ever-lovely co-host, Noah Ward.
Hey, everybody. It's good to be back. I love talking with Evan, and I've missed it so. And I've missed talking to everybody out there in the audience, either in audio land or in video land. So it's good to see you all through my magic mirror. I feel like I'm in an episode of Romper Room, so I'm going to stop that. But it's great to be back, and I can't wait to hear what Evan's going to tell me about, because I said it before I left that I was like, should I go on a gaming news blackout, and then I can come back and Evan can tell me everything that happened while I've been gone, and I can give you my live reactions. So Evan's going to do that for me, and then I'm going to talk about some other stuff.
Yeah, it's going to be really fun. Noah was able to make it to Tokyo Game Show. You can see his impressions of that, especially since he's been to other video game conferences here in North America, such as E3 and PAX Prime. But we're also going to talk about 3DS themes. We're going to talk some game impressions. So much to talk about in such a short amount of time. This is episode 38, No Return. So let's get started. First things first, for the second week in a row. No, I don't know if you caught on to the news, but 3DS firmware update went live. So last week before I went live on the show, the Wii U firmware update, and we got folders. This week, it's for the 3DS, and themes are finally live. And one of the cool surprises, I haven't been able to check this out, but I think you may have been able to, is that Nintendo has pre-installed 5 themes for you to switch between, and then the additional ones are then available for purchase.
Okay, so my main priority was downloading the Smash Brothers demo. So I had an update to do, and it took forever. And I'm like, what is this? What happened in the last 2 weeks? But I guess it just happened, and it was themes. It's like, oh, you can have themes, and it was overwrought in traditional Nintendo fashion. Like, oh, you have themes. Like, there's something over here. Now click this. Now click this. Now click this. And she's like, I just want to get to the shop. And it's like, oh, you have to accept new terms and conditions. I'm like, accept. And then I got to the shop, and it's like, you haven't accepted the conditions. I'm like, what are you talking about? I went into the themes. The only themes that I saw were just solid colors. It was red, yellow, blue, black, purple, green. So I don't know if those were the 5 pre-installed. I thought that there was going to be more to it, but I was just in a rush to download that demo. That's all I really wanted. So I picked yellow, and I said, okay, I get it. And I went to the shop and downloaded, and then that was taking forever, so I just stopped. So if there are graphical ones, I apologize. I just enjoyed putting some colors in the background. That's all I got.
Well, that's cool. Well, the other thing that you can do, and I can do as well if I finally download the update. I didn't know about it until I got on here to give myself an out there, but 3DS owners can now capture screenshots on their home menu, so you can show off your themes as well as show off all the games that you have downloaded, and then tweet about them or place them on Facebook, because I believe the image sharing tool is now part of the main menu. So you can take a screenshot, I believe, with maybe it's the Y button, and then you can send that out. Kind of like you could do in Animal Crossing or Tamagotchi Collection, stuff like that. So, or Tamagotchi Life here. I always get that confused. Tamagotchi Collection seems like a better name anyway, but Tamagotchi Life here in North America and Europe.
Well, I hope you have fun skinning and coloring and theming and taking pictures. But I'm not quite sure I'm going to jump on the bandwagon fully and purchase a theme or not, unless it's really, really cool. I don't know, but the color's kind of cool.
I could definitely go for Professor Layton theme. I could go for a Monster Hunter theme, and these have been announced. The Monster Hunter's been announced in Japan. I don't know. I think I was reading that there are 15 themes available now, and I wouldn't be surprised if they're all first party for the time being. But I really hope Nintendo kind of opens the floodgates to third parties and indie developers especially as well, because it'd be really cool to see some of those. Like, it'd be cool to see Rusty from SteamWorld dig some kind of cool theme on your 3DS for that, or some of those smaller level 5 games like Attack of the Friday Monsters theme. And that's probably like reaching for the stars here with those theme ideas, but those would be really cool. And I'm curious how Nintendo will kind of tackle this, because this is the first time on any system, and I wouldn't be surprised to see this on the Wii U, that we have seen this sort of customization to a home menu from Nintendo on any of its systems.
Yeah, that is definitely the case. Um, I like it. I like the idea that Nintendo's growing more comfortable with allowing its users. I'm talking like I'm at work, allowing its fans and its customers a little bit more control over their experience. They can have a little bit more personalization, and I think it's actually kind of a nice uh, preface or build up to the arrival of the new 3DS, where you can actually change out the case covers on the smaller 3DS model. It's like, yeah, customize it. Do something more than just purchase a specific color of the system. Actually, and to do more than just make your Mii. Actually, make more of the system custom to your tastes and your interests.
Definitely. And other than that, no, I know you were curious what you've been missing here in
Yeah.
Nintendo Land. And news-wise, you have not missed much. I believe there was a Bayonetta Nintendo Direct that wasn't really full of
Ooh.
any too many interesting surprises. It was sort of an in-depth look of the game. But you
Hmm.
haven't missed any. A lot of people, and this is something I talked about in my solo show last week. I believe there has to be some sort of Nintendo Direct immediately on the horizon, since we A, don't know Smash Brothers release date, B, don't know Amiibo release date. Those are probably tied together, and all signs in North America are pointing toward November 21st, the Friday before Black Friday and Thanksgiving weekend. And then three, Captain Toad. And there's new reports kind of saying, guess what? Not only is that delayed in Europe because it's a 2015 title in Europe, but that is going to kind of take Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze's role from last year and be a surprise delay into next year. So we don't know yet, but Nintendo definitely has a lot to address. And I also speculated last week that we might get a surprise eShop game a la Dr. Luigi or NES Remix that we saw last year. So I think Nintendo has to, at the very end of the day, a Nintendo Direct would be fun, because I feel like we haven't gotten a more traditional Nintendo Direct. We've had game specifics, but even just a press release, we need to get that information now that we're in the second week of October.
The news of a Captain Toad delay is quite discouraging, and it makes me feel like we are reliving last year all over again. That Nintendo starts out confident, like, oh yeah, you're going to get this, you're going to get this, and there's lots of cool stuff to look forward to this holiday, and then like, oh wait, we may not have enough games again for Q1, so let's take this game that reuses gameplay and artwork and music from another game that really shouldn't take that long and push it out. I mean, what are they? Are they adding multiplayer, you think? Or is
I
there some War and Peace type of script in there that needs to be localized, and that's why it's being delayed in Europe? It seems more like traditional Nintendo. Uh-oh, not enough content in the pipeline, spin it out.
I really don't know. Hopefully, Captain Toad isn't delayed. There's just some speculation. I believe GameFly changed its listing to next March from its more vague December of this year. I think Amazon and them haven't changed it, but just not hearing much information, I believe, since Nintendo kind of had that live stream a few weeks ago, and that may have even been before you left. There was a big live stream for Smash Brothers and everything, but
Hmm.
there hasn't been a release date or anything announced there. So getting to the point where we're less than 2 months until December, the last month of the year, that just makes you a little bit nervous about whether it's going to hit its date. And it was this time last year, I believe it was the first week of October, we got the sad news that Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze would get pushed back. So I'd be really curious, because I have seen some people kind of speculate that, you know what, maybe Nintendo doesn't have anything in the first quarter of next year for Wii use, and they've got Smash Brothers, and that just makes me think they said they had a lot of stuff for next year, with Splatoon in the first quarter, Mario Maker in the first quarter, um, titles like that. Those are some big titles, and I want to hope that those aren't all first half 2015, but that means May, like Mario Kart 8 was. So there's a lot to see, and I have to believe once again that we're going to get a Nintendo Direct or some kind of press release soon. But other than that, it's been pretty light on news, and most of our readers and viewers have been entertaining themselves during that time by playing Hyrule Warriors, Theater Rhythm, Final Fantasy Curtain Call, which people will not stop raving about and want to hear your impressions. You haven't bought it yet, but you have downloaded the demo, which we'll talk about in a bit.
Mhm.
And then obviously the big one was over this past weekend, Super Smash Brothers for Nintendo 3DS.
Yes, I felt just a little bit the continued frenzy and hype for the release of that game as I heard about demos being made available and reviews, I guess, were starting to come out, but I really had very little. I didn't get to play the demo when I was over there, and yet there were all these native Japanese people who were playing the game on the trains that everybody uses to travel across Tokyo with. And so I kept seeing it, but I didn't get to play it, which is kind of funny until I got back. So now I've downloaded the demo and hopefully we'll get a chance to play it. It felt really weird to have been engaged with and participating in the hype for a huge, huge game that's we've been looking forward to for quite a while, and then to be completely removed from that hype machine and that be removed from your friends who have been like really excited about it, who might be buying it, and all the commercials and the coverage on websites and just turning all that off. And when that happened, the weirdest thing was is it just kind of turned off my personal hype for the game. And I came back and it's just like, well, the game's already come out. People already played it. It's been reviewed. And I mean, it's not like it's over. It's only been out for a week or so, but it really put me in a weird spot mentally where I wasn't quite so certain that I had to or really wanted to buy the game. And so that's why I'm downloading the demo. We'll see how that is.
Well, I'm curious. You brought up riding the trains, being in Japan where Street Pass is king. How was your Street Pass experience over there?
Oh, it is very easy wherever you are, at least as far as Tokyo is concerned, and actually even in the city a few hours outside of Tokyo that I visited for the second week, that's very easy to get friend passes, whether you're in a mall or you're in the train. I had a friend there who had just decided, he's like, all right, I'm finally going to get Bravely Default Japanese version, and we were wandering around the mall looking for food and going to the arcades. And he's like, I've already gotten 4 people added to my village in Bravely Default who are helping build things. And I remember how important that was in that game in order to accelerate and increase what you can build in your village and get more out of it. And I was just kind of envious, and I tried to tell him, he's native Japanese speaker, that does not happen in the U.S. There are no friend passes unless you go to a once-a-year convention like Dragon Con or the Penny Arcade Expo, or if you go to E3, if you're lucky enough to do that, as because you work at a game site or something like that, or I imagine overseas if you were to go to Eurogamer. But in the U.S., that's about the only time it happens, or you can try the what's it called?
There's
The
Best
delayed
Buy,
spot pass.
Best Buy, McDonald's, or if you're flying, I've found pretty good success whenever I've flown somewhere through the airport.
Yeah, yeah. So the I was really into friend passes and playing the games, the little me games on my 3DS. And after that novelty wore off, I didn't feel a need to engage in it because I don't like having to go in every 10 people and clear them out. Go in every 10 people, clear them out. Go in. It becomes really time consuming. And once I got my whole fill of that at a convention a couple of years ago, I was like, hey, it's all good. But I did get some additional content for some games that I still had Spot Pass and Friend Pass or Spot Pass turned on for. So that was kind of cool.
That's really awesome. Yeah, you bring up a good point that I don't think's been discussed, and maybe it's because it's not going to change. But it'd be really cool. I'm like you. I'm frustrated that there's kind of the 10 friend limit, and unless you do something with those people, you can't get any more street passes. It really feels like it should be 50 or 100 or something. It'd be really cool with a new 3DS and this better
Yeah.
processor and computer if that was upped. And Nintendo hasn't really talked about it. Maybe that'd screw up the compatibility, but that would have been a really nice feature to include for 3DS owners if it could be bumped up a little bit.
Yeah, and I don't think you even need to make it so that you can get 50 at once, because it would break some of the Street Pass games like Find Me.
Oh yeah.
You could just totally dominate in that. But if they could just cache it
Yeah.
and let you cache up to 50 or 100 at a time, and you can only use them 10 at a time to play through the game, so the games don't get broken by having way too many Mii's in there. But you can still, when it's convenient, I'm like, all right, stop everything what I'm doing. Because when I went to a convention with a friend of mine and I was enthralled with Street Passing and playing those games, I kind of blew off my friend. It's like, all right, hold on. I need to do this. I have to do this. And it was so weird that I was being social on Street Pass, but being completely antisocial to my friend who was with me, because I had to manage it. I had, like, there's 10 more people. Okay, I've got what games do I like to play? Okay, I'm going to play the mansion one. I'm going to play the shooter one. Maybe I'll play Find Me. And I was going through it, and it's like, all right, what was it you were saying now that I'm with my 3DS and being a total obnoxious jerk? So I would love caching of Street Passes.
Yeah, definitely. Well, you know who isn't an obnoxious jerk? Phoenix Wright. And it sounds like you've been spending most of your time when you're flying or doing your escapades throughout Japan, which we're all jealous of. You're playing Phoenix Wright Ace Attorney Dual Destinies.
Yeah, so true confessions time, I have not played through that game. There's just so many games, and I thought, it's like, oh my goodness, I have a 14-hour flight to Tokyo. This is the perfect opportunity and the perfect reason to just stockpile a bunch of games from the eShop that I've been wanting to buy or to play. And so I've had Dual Destinies since it came out, but I also finally decided to get Harmonite after giving up and waiting for it to go on sale. And then I also got Phoenix Wright versus Professor Layton, and a couple other ones as well. Not to mention the other games that I've already downloaded that I still haven't played through, like Starship Memory. Yeah, I was totally stocked up. And the thing is I downloaded the Final Fantasy Curtain Call Theater Rhythm Final Fantasy Curtain Call. Is that the order of the titles?
Yes, that's right.
I downloaded the demo for that, and so I played that some, and then I went into Harmonite and I played that some, and then I was playing Dual Destinies, and it's just like, well, no, I don't feel right playing Phoenix Wright and Professor Layton versus Professor Layton if I don't finish Dual Destinies first. And so my head started spinning, and the reality set in of just like, this is why I don't finish games, is because I let a new one distract me, or I just get a bunch at once and then I pick one, and it's like, all right, I'll play through this, and by the time I'm ready to start something else that I've already purchased, oh, there's something else, and it's just too easy to do it. So I said, settle down, Noah, play through this Phoenix Wright game, play through this Phoenix Wright game, and from it, I can yet again evangelize how much I love this franchise, because it is a great addition to the series, and it almost is a really cool starting point. I mean, I definitely recommend the trilogy, the first three. Yeah. And I think Apollo Justice is cool, and the stuff with Miles Edgeworth was cool, but this new one, it's not too bad to come in as a starting experience, because you get introduced to a lot of the characters, and the production value is just so much higher on the 3DS. There's all these additional anime cutscenes that have been added in for dramatic moments. There's a little bit of voice acting during those, and you get hints and teases of things that were solved in previous games or revealed, or they were mysteries, but they don't spoil them per se, so I don't know if it's necessarily bad. I think the one catch of playing this version of Phoenix Wright, or this chapter of Phoenix Wright, and then going back would be, well, the presentation isn't quite as flashy. There are no 3D polygonal character models or environments. It's all static scenes, but they're well animated. They have more animation and life to them than some other adventure games that I've played on my DS Lite and on my 3DS. So I still really like it, and I just thought, all right, I need to get through this game, and I've been very happy with it. As with every Phoenix Wright game, some mysteries are better than others, and right now I'm kind of trying to get through one that's just like, oh, these characters are just yuck, yuck, yuck. But I know that there are inevitably the next mystery will be really great, and I'll get through this one and really love everything again. But regardless of where the current mystery ranks on all of the Phoenix Wright mysteries that I've played in, the game as a whole is excellent, and I'm so glad that we were able to get it, even if it was digital only. And I actually did see physical retail copies of the game at used game stores, which of course I can't purchase or use unless I bought a Japanese 3DS, so I wasn't going to do that nonsense. I just looked at it and I held it, And I looked at the front cover and I looked at the back cover. I'm like, this is what it's like when games come out physically. I almost don't remember anymore. So yeah, playing through that, it's great. If you haven't played a Phoenix Wright game before and you want something a little bit flashier, if you think you're kind of on the fence and you're thinking, oh, those Game Boy Advance ports to DS to whatever system you're now playing on, Wii or iPad or whatever, doesn't seem like it quite pique your interest, I would say consider this one. It might be a little bit more expensive than the trilogy pack, and you may not get as much content, but it's flashier. And if pizzazz is something that speaks to you and may get you over the fence that you're sitting on, then definitely I would so far suggest trying it out.
That's really cool. So did Harmonite or Theater Rhythm, though, kind of take away any of that Phoenix Wright time?
Only at the very beginning. And they were kind of my break games that I would go to, and it's just like, all right, enough Phoenix Wright. It's time to take a break. There's only so much reading that I can do.
Enough Phoenix.
What?
I said enough Phoenix. Objection.
Yeah, objection.
Did you yell that out on the plane? Yeah.
No, I saw the little microphone icon, and I already got enough weird looks just being on the plane alone, so I thought that I would try to keep it quiet. But Harmonite, not surprisingly, is just as hard as I remember it being when I played the demo. But it's interesting in that it goes a totally different route. The latter stages of the demo you don't even go into. Like there's a secret advanced stage that you can unlock that's got Pokemon themed stuff in the background and a Pokemon song in it. And then the boss battle, which in the demo has you flying through the air and through canyons attacking this giant evil bee. Those levels are totally different. And they're easier, which is good. But yeah, really good, great rhythm game. And then, of course, there's Theater Rhythm, Final Fantasy, Curtain Call. And my friend who I stayed with, bless him, he's been living in Japan too long. He's American. And I'm like, hey, did you know that the sequel to that music game came out? The Final Fantasy one? He's like, oh, the At Rhythm? I'm like, do you mean Theater Rhythm? But he wasn't hearing anybody in Japan pronounce it any other way, so he was calling it the At Rhythm. Kind of like it's a preposition. It doesn't make any sense at all. I don't know what he was thinking. I'm like, it's Theater Rhythm. Yes, and it's out. But anyways, the demo, which I'm sure hardcore Theater Rhythm fans devoured, is really cool in that if you download it and you play it, the progress that you make in that demo carries over to the retail game if you purchase the retail game. Now, I haven't played the first Theater Rhythm in quite some time, a couple years at least, or however long it's been since it came out. So when I got back into it, it's like, oh, cool. And it's like, button controls or size control? I'm like, definitely button controls. But there's only 2 songs, and it just didn't grab me the way that the first one did. There was just something that rang a little hollow about it. And part of that's because, I wasn't able to choose what mode I was doing. I had only 2 songs to choose from. I couldn't choose my party. So there was a lot of, as deep as Theater Rhythm can be, some of that depth was missing in the demo, because in the interest of giving you something that's small and actually downloadable. So it's kind of like, eh. And then Harmonite is like, this is hard. And then I'd go back to Phoenix Wright and I'd be like, all right, this I can process. I can do this on the plane as I'm like struggling to stay awake so that I can adjust to the massive time difference.
Yeah.
I was falling asleep. It was a little rough, but
yeah. I'll let you know, viewers and listeners have just been raving about Theater Rhythm Final Fantasy Curtain Call. They've been hoping that you get the game to see what you have to say, but everyone says it's a huge jump and step up from the original. They like the online multiplayer. They say everything about it just seems more refined and streamlined. And I think there have been a lot of people that like the button controls. So just wanted to pass the word on. I know that you're a huge rhythm game fan. It's across the board, week in and week out. People have just been going on and on about it. And I think even this week in our feedback section, we have at least one person talking once more about how much they're enjoying Theater Rhythm Final Fantasy Curtain Call. So maybe after Phoenix Wright Ace Attorney Dual Destinies, you can jump in, make the plunge, and come back to talk about that, because people are dying to hear what Mr. Music has to say. That's your new nickname, by the way. I just referred to you as Mr. Music while you were away.
Thank you very much. That's a nickname that I will accept for now.
For now. But when it's over, it's over.
Well, I'll level up into something else, I hope.
Ooh, that's a good idea. Maybe Mega Evolve. That's been a big thing going on with the Pokemon remakes. Well, it's cool to hear that you got some 3DS time in. I'm like you. I usually like stockpile, or I'm like, I'm gonna play all these games on a flight. And then I like get on the plane. I'm like, I'm falling asleep, or I'm just gonna watch a movie, and then don't play any of those games. But I'm sure now that you're back, you'll have some time to spend
Oh
with them.
yeah. Yeah, I need to. It's weird when you not only change time zones dramatically, but you go on vacation. My vacation was very much a go, 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 go
Yeah.
every day, multiple events, multiple trips, lots of traveling. See this, see that, see this, see that, and it's a totally different lifestyle. And then coming back, it's just like, how do I set up my computer for the podcast again? And now I have a different computer that I'm using. It's like, oh shoot, I should have started this a little bit earlier. And it's just like, where does the lamp go? And what am I doing with my schedule? I'm like, oh my gosh, I have all these things to do. So I need to make sure that game time is a part of my new schedule. Now that I'm refreshed and the palette has been cleansed, because goodness, I have so many games that I want to play, and it's that time of year
Oh
when
yes.
more games come out, unless they're Nintendo games, then they're delayed. But there will still be some Nintendo games coming out that will have to be integrated into the growing pile that is towering over me.
Oh,
But
definitely.
so far so good. It's all fun stuff.
Yeah, and one of those games that we are both excited about, but I've just been going on and on about, especially while you've been away, is Fantasy Life. And I'm happy to report that I'll be reviewing Fantasy Life for NF Magazine. Lucas has bestowed that honor upon me. And while I haven't played it yet, I'm looking for the review code soon since the game comes out at the end of the month. So you'll be able to hear me on this show talk about the game and go on and on about it. And it has online multiplayer. So Noah, I'm hoping that you may pick it up because unlike Hyrule Warriors, we could play it together. Sorry, Hyrule Warrior fans, I couldn't pass up that opportunity there. But just something to look forward to in the weeks ahead. But with
Nice.
that, let's talk more about you, Noah. You. We missed you. We want to hear more about your awesome adventure in Tokyo, but it doesn't sound like the Tokyo Game Show was your thing while you were over there.
Yeah, no, that's kind of sad to say because my first week there, and one of the primary reasons why I chose these 2 weeks to go out there was for Tokyo Game Show. I could finally go to this game show that I've heard so much about, that I've watched trailers from, that I've looked at pictures of the exhibition hall from, and I've wondered how it's compared because I've been to E3 many times. I've been to the Penny Arcade Expo a couple times, and I've been to Dragon Con, which isn't a video game specific convention, but it has a lot of people. It does have video game stuff there. And I just was wondering, like, wow, what's it going to be like? And it was the highlight or the title of the tour group that I was in the first week that I was in Japan. Because the first week, it was a tour group with some wonderful English people, because it was an English tour company, because the American one fell through. And it was basically the next to last day, with the last day being an optional return to Tokyo Game Show if you want. And let me tell you, I had enough in one day, and it's just like I cannot foresee ever wanting to go back for a second day or even another trip. It just was not my thing. And I speak with that opinion from a perspective of old. Maybe not too old. I mean, not that old, but I've been to a lot of other conventions, and I think part of it was also the timing. As I mentioned, it was a very, very busy vacation, and it can be kind of exhausting, just all of the traveling and the running and the rushing and the go to this, go to that, go to this, go to that. That by the time you're at the end of the week and you just kind of want to chill out, you see the most people ever in a really confined space, because unlike E3, Tokyo Game Show is open to the public on a couple of days of the weekend. People just have to pay a ticket price. And it was at the I do not know any more Japanese. Makuhari Mess? But it was a giant convention center in Tokyo, and I was not at all impressed. It's basically this series of 5 gigantic warehouses, rectangular warehouses with super high ceilings because, well, it's a convention center. Concrete floors, no padded carpet like they do at E3, not even in the booths. It's all flat, straight up sealed concrete. And the only light in these warehouses occurred between the warehouses, where there were these enclosed, narrow, well, they were short glass hallways that had some trees in them. So you'd have gigantic warehouse and then like this glass hallway, and then warehouse B, warehouse C, warehouse D, or convention hall as they called it. The only light in the warehouses came from the booths. There was really no light overhead. And so you're in throngs of thousands of people. It's hot and humid because it's Japan, and there's just Japanese screaming out all over around you, and you can barely even move around because it's so dark and there's so many people and they're all just kind of shoving around. And after a week of dealing with thousands and thousands of people, it just, I was not in the right frame of mind for it. And Nintendo wasn't there at all.
Yeah.
Microsoft had a gigantic booth. Of all companies, Microsoft had a gigantic Xbox One booth. Sony had a gigantic PlayStation booth. EA had a pretty decently, a modestly sized booth, considering how big their booths are at E3. Activision wasn't there. Bandai Namco was there, and Capcom and Sega, and then a bunch of Japanese mobile game companies were there, of course. But everything had lines. So if you wanted to play Biohazard Revelations 2, which I initially got in line for, that's an hour wait, or it's an hour and a half. And pretty much everything started at an hour and then went up from there 2 hours, 3 hours. Sometimes the line stretched out of the convention hall and then wrapped around somewhere else. And what I found myself realizing, being flush with games on my 3DS that I hadn't even gotten through or started in many cases, was, do I really want to spend an hour or two in the 6 hours that I have here in a very uncomfortable atmosphere, playing a game for 5 minutes that I can play in a couple months, or I can play even next year when I have all these other games that I can play? And yeah, there may be some games that I could play that I'll never be able to play outside of Japan, but I don't know Japanese. I don't know a lick of Japanese, and so it would be all whoosh. And in my time in Japan, you hear these stories that everybody knows English out there, out of the many, 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 many people I interacted with at restaurants and stores and just on the street. There were two that actually comfortably spoke English at all. Otherwise, it's like, I don't really want to make eye contact with you. I don't really understand. I can't really piece together a basic sentence. And it reminds me kind of how it is in North American schools, where it's like you have to take a foreign language at least for a few years in high school, maybe more if you're motivated. And you take it and you learn it, and maybe you even get it relatively fluent, and then you completely forget it unless you actually use it. And that's what I think actually happened with a lot of these people. Is like, I don't need to remember English. I don't need to. It's like everything else here is in my native language. I'm not going to be using English. I think that's how most people are, because
Yeah.
they're none of that going on. So do I want to play an all-Japanese game? Because after all, they had like a really cool promo sequence for the new Phoenix Wright game. Actually, I take that back, the new Ace Attorney game, because Phoenix Wright isn't in it. And
The
Sherlock
great
Holmes and
Ace
some
Attorney. Yeah.
weird girl that's Watson and is in it. And it's just like, I was saying now, it's like I could go into this theater and watch like a presentation about it and know absolutely nothing about what's going on. So I just stood outside the Capcom booth and I watched the little promo video play over and over in Japanese, not really getting anything, but really liking the art. That was cool. And then the coolest part was the store warehouse, because the final warehouse had like, here's the Capcom store, here's the Square Enix store, here's the Sega store, here's the Konami style store, here's the Bandai Namco store, here's stores for game companies I've never even heard of. Again, 1 hour, 2 hour waits, but really cool stuff that you may not be able to get elsewhere. There was a lot of stuff there that, being Japan, was available massively available at all the game stores and stuff like that in Tokyo. Lots of little figurines and knickknacks and stuff like that. But there's some stuff, and I wanted anything Ace Attorney related. I didn't care what it was, so I got a really cheesy paper holder and like a postcard or something with the artwork of the new Ace Attorney and Sherlock Holmes and stuff like that.
That's
I
cool.
waited in line for an hour for that.
Do you have it nearby to show off to everyone?
Oh, I don't. But you know
That's
what,
okay.
listeners, as I've gathered a variety of little silly things, including my little stuffed animal, I really struggled with the idea of purchasing a stuffed animal because, I'm a grown man, and that's the animal behind me, usurping Mario, Luigi, and Toad. I've got a Koopaline behind me. But you know what? He was kind of cheap considering how expensive everything is in Japan. And Roy's my favorite Koopaling. He's my go-to guy in Mario Kart. So there he is. He's got his little wand. It's a little it's a little bent out of shape, but
He looks
that's
so
my man.
relaxed though.
He's
It
my
looks like
bro.
he's just chilling back there. He looks
Yeah,
really laid back. I didn't. I
he's
almost brought up Roy. I wanted you to introduce him, but I almost brought it up when we were talking about the Captain Toad delay because I wanted to be like, well, not only has Nintendo put the shelves Captain Toad, but you apparently have as well for Roy Koopa. But it's cool to see that. But that's not the only toy that you got. You also got a really cool Kirby.
I did.
Would
I
you call
did.
that a Kirby? Would you call that a toy, or would you call it more like a desk ornament? Or it's
I
actually a
don't
game,
know.
right?
I guess it is. I don't have it out of the package to show yet, so I'll just have to show you the box here. So if you're listening to us, you'll have to watch the video and jump to this point in the video to see what it looks like. But I saw this several times. I saw it in several stores, and considering what it was definitely overpriced. And there were multiple Kirby options, but this little box of miniature Kirby's was just too darn irresistible and cute for me to avoid. And so I thought, much like that stuffed animal behind me of Roy Koopa, I debated that all week long because I saw it at the very beginning. I was like, I really want that Roy Koopa doll. It's like it'd be cooler if I could just get a figurine that's not so silly, something smaller and more discreet. And the same thing about these little Kirby's because they're really tiny. I think they're I don't know, would you call it like a walnut size? I don't know. But the idea is there's a whole bunch of little Kirby's in here, and much like Mass Attack, you clump them together. It's a balancing game where you try to put them together into these arrangements that are shown on the back of the box. And they don't actually have any knobs or catches on them, so it's a very delicate balancing game. But the Kirby's have so many cute faces. Look at that. There's like yawning Kirby and sleeping Kirby
Is there
and
angry
Haley
Kirby,
Kirby.
or is that only North America gets angry Kirby? Because you know the box art story. Is there angry Kirby?
There is. There is.
Okay.
There, there's an angry Kirby. There's, yeah, he's got his eyes are down. Let's see if I can get how close I can get. How close can I show you the angry Kirby? Where is he at? Now I'm like doing things reverse. There he is. Do you see him in the top left corner?
Yeah.
Angry Kirby holding up the star. And there's also, and then he's pouting over there. And there's another slightly angry Kirby somewhere. But yeah, they're all represented. They're super cute. And when I have that to show, I also got a little Froakie because Froakie's my man. He's doing kind of like this cockeye, like what you say. Now these are things that I feel like you could get in North America. So I didn't buy a lot of Nintendo things because a lot of these things you can purchase online through Amazon or through import stores, and it just wasn't that novel. There was one thing that I couldn't resist though, and it was really expensive for what it was, and it's a little capsule toy. It's a sound drop, is what these are called. You can attach them to your backpack, and this is one from Spirit. No wait, Phantom Hourglass. So that's probably why it was so old, or why it had such a high price. Normally, what you do in Japan is they have these awesome capsule machines, and it's $1. You put in a 100 yen coin, which is basically about $1 US value, and you randomly get something. Well, there are stores that specialize in just selling you the capsule toys without you having to randomly hope that you get it. But there's, of course, a premium attached to it based on how rare they
Oh,
are or how old they are. But this one I couldn't resist because it goes like this,
that's amazing.
which is one of my favorite Zelda sounds. And I feel like I could use that on the podcast all the time because it could be like, Evan, have you heard anything about Captain Toad? And you could be like, and it'd be like, yeah, it's delayed. And I could be like, that's a surprise. When I'm being sarcastic and Koopaling that's myself.
That's pretty cool. Well, anything else that you'd like to talk about? It's really cool seeing all of the little toys and the cool stuff you got there. It's a bummer to hear about Tokyo Game Show, and I'm really sad that you weren't able to, for me personally, the selfish side of me, that you didn't get to try out Monster Hunter 4 Ultimate, because I believe that was the only way to play the new 3DS there, was through the Monster Hunter 4 Ultimate. Sorry, I was getting confused there. Through that demo, but I know that that was probably one of the longest waits at the Tokyo Game Show as well.
Yeah, they had a really impressive statue and some people in costumes, and I took pictures of them because there's lots of Monster Hunter stuff. At the Capcom store, that was probably half of the merchandise
Oh
was all
yeah.
related to Monster Hunter. Uh, and it was cool. I almost got a Monster Hunter ball cap. It's a trucker style cap, so it's the plastic mesh, and it had this really cool graphic. And it's like, you know what? that would be very hypocritical of me to get a Monster Hunter baseball cap, no matter how cool it looks. So I let it be. And I
Let it
moved on.
be. We're going to make you a Monster Hunter fan with Monster Hunter 4 Ultimate. It is going to happen because it's going to come out during the new 3DS here in North America. We can get hyped together. We can play online. You're going to do it. You're going to do it.
Does that mean that you're going to buy it for me?
Yep, there you go. We're all going to pitch in.
Like do a crowdfunding for me to play for Monster Hunter. That would be the most horrible first world problem crowdfunding yet. I think that would be awful. I would not participate in that.
We'd make you feel guilty when you're not playing it. If you're playing anything else, you'd have to give out like your phone number, your friend code, so we could all harass you when you're playing something else. We got you, Monster Hunter. Play it.
That would be really a big surprise if that happened. But I am not anticipating it happening at this point. But yeah, I don't want to put water on your dreams if you have a dream of going to Tokyo Game Show. It may be for you if you're really young and excited and energetic, and you're like, I love swimming through seas of people, and I've got all the time in the world. Maybe especially if you want to, if you can go 2 days in a row, and then you can actually say, all right, well, I'm going to spend 4 hours in lines today for my 20 minutes of gameplay, but I'm coming back tomorrow, and then I can wait in lines for those other ones, because it'd be hard, I think, if you had an agenda or a list of things to go to. But bear in mind, there were people in my tour group who went multiple years, or at least last year, and then one of my best friend who I stayed with in my post Tokyo week, he had also gone last year, and he's like, "I was so awesome. There's so many cool games." All of the people, including my friends, said there was more people there. The girls weren't as cute. There really wasn't that much to play. None of them liked it. So I might have just come on a bad year, an off year.
Weird.
And maybe next year it'll be better, but it was not just me who felt that way. Nobody went back to Tokyo Game Show the next day in my tour group. Of course, they're like, we're in Japan. We're not going to be here regularly. We need to go do more things, other things with our time. And I was supposed to go back and meet my friend there, which would have been like finding a needle in a haystack, let alone destroying my mental sanity. So I didn't go either. I went back to Harajuku. And I wanted to go to Akihabara, so I made him go to Akihabara after that. There's an amazing retro game store there called Super Potato that was amazing. 3 floors of retro Nintendo goodness. I have all these excellent pictures. Took thousands of pictures. I'm really bad about posting pictures or tweeting or doing anything when I'm on vacation. I'm fully on vacation, but I'll put together some albums showing the awesomeness of Japanese arcades, of which there's like 3-floor arcades, 4-floor arcades. Everybody loves crane games and pachinko out there, but there's also Taiko Drum Master, which was so awesome to play that. And that there was a game where you had a pig that you yanked up and down to make it race down a race course, and you had to steer it left and right. And I took pictures of all the stuff that was at that retro game store, pictures of Tokyo Game Show, so that will be something to look forward to. I had a fantastic time in Japan. I don't want you to think that my less than positive opinion of Tokyo Game Show represented everything else. There was a lot of cool stuff to see. And if you're a gamer and you have the awesome opportunity to go on a group tour or meet a friend out there and see Akihabara and Shibuya and go to the dog statue and the world ends with you and actually get your picture with it and just see the thousands of people everywhere crossing all through over the streets just like in that game and their cool clothing styles, or if you get to go to Akihabara and see just the incredible video game nirvana there and don't get too pervy at the maid cafes and other stuff like that. There's just really, really amazing cool things to experience and highly recommended. Tokyo Game Show, though, is hit or miss, but if you have other things, it makes it all the better.
What's funny, I thought about you saying that a lot of people didn't have as much fun this year is because I feel like this was the most newsworthy Tokyo Game Show that we've seen in years in regard to hearing about Final Fantasy 15, and we got to hear new information about Type 0 HD, and the new 3DS was there, and there was all of this like news coming out that I felt hasn't really been the case the past couple of years, but I guess it really just didn't translate to the overall show floor for people going, which is unfortunate and sad that it didn't live up to your expectations, but it's really cool to hear that other parts of Tokyo, though, more than made up for it. So it's just great to hear that you had such a good time, and thank you so much for sharing all of your experiences here on the NF show and with me. I'm sure we'll get to hear more about it over the weeks to come as you remember little side notes and everything like that.
Yeah.
Can't wait to just hear more and more about your experience over there, especially the arcades. We're going to have to talk about that more in depth and see.
Hmm.
Did Nintendo have a pretty big uh, kind of presence at arcades overall? Did you see like any of their arcade games over there? Get to play any of those or?
Consistently was the Mario Kart arcade game, which had some pretty sweet tracks in it and was very flashy and colorful. But other than that, that was the only thing there that I noticed. And I think part of it is because the arcades are either Sega arcades or Namco arcades. And so usually most of the arcade games that are in there, of which I would say it's only like 25% of the arcade is arcade games like we think of. I would
Yeah.
say 50% of it to seven. Say 50% of it is crane games and 25% of it is pachinko games, or sometimes it's 40-30, and then the remainder of that would be arcade games. They did actual arcade games, not there as much, but I did see Namco games that I've actually played here in the States were there, and Sega games, but Nintendo wasn't really there much.
Yeah. And then I guess two quick questions because I'm curious and I don't want to forget about them. The first one, did you get to see at all visualizations of the Yokoi, is it Yokoi Watch or Yokai Watch that's just kind of sweeping over there, the 3DS
Oh
game?
my gosh. Yeah. I'm like, what is this crazy psycho cat and all these other crazy weird cats? And there were so many stores that were playing the theme song over and over. There's all these dolls, all these toys. And my buddy Chris is like, have you heard of this? I'm like, it sounds familiar. I know he's like, oh, I'm sure you're going to hear about it soon enough. It's like, it's so crazy. It's such the hugest fad out here. Everybody loves it. And he was translating some of the lyrics from the opening theme song that he thought were funny, where I think at one point in the theme song they say, "Why does your poop smell so bad?" And it's just like, why is that in a theme song? But it was funny. So yeah, it is massively represented out there. It is definitely the flavor du jour for a lot of the little kids out there, and there are plenty of toys everywhere to purchase if you're a fan of that. And there's cards, of course, card games too.
And I think that there's like like arcade games or kind of like the crane games built specifically around that to get watches or badges or something, right? Do you see any of that?
Oh yeah, yeah. My goodness, there are crane games for everything. Lots of
Okay.
One Piece stuff, lots of Dragon Ball Z, and then lots of stuff for enemies all the way back to Sailor Moon and Neon Genesis Evangelion. And I wouldn't say that I felt that Yokai Watch was overrepresented or stronger. I felt that those other things that I mentioned, those other properties, were actually more represented than Yokai Watch.
Cool. Well, that has been. I think that some companies optioned the anime for North America, and Level 5 has talked about localizing that for North America and Europe. So it'll be curious to see whether that catches on here in the West, which is really exciting. And then finally, did you buy any retro games, or did you buy like an old Game Boy from Super Potato? Any purchases there?
I thought about it. They actually had a Virtual Boy demo unit working and on display. And so I got to play Virtual Boy. And they had ROB units in there that weren't for sale. They were just sitting there. You could touch them. And they had GameCubes and original Famicoms and Super Famicoms just shrink wrapped and stacked up by the dozens. And then they had a whole bunch of other systems. They had all of Sega systems. They had uh, Philips systems, Sony systems just piled up and ready for purchase. But I just thought it's like, you know what? Don't want to do it. But there were some friends on the tour group who are all about retro games. Like, there's something I'm trying to track down. I want to get this game or I want to get this system. And somebody bought a Japanese 3DS just for, I guess, the heck of it. But I just thought, it's cool to see them and to take pictures of them, but I don't need more clutter in
Yeah.
my life of stuff that I'm going to use once and then it's going to just gather dust.
Yeah, well, that's cool. Once again, thank you so much for sharing your experiences in Japan. It was so fun to hear about them, and I can't wait to hear more here on the show, the NF Show. And be sure, if you have any questions out there, viewers and listeners, you can write in. You can email us at show@nfmagazine.com, or you can leave a comment if you're watching here right on YouTube, right below this episode. Ask Noah anything you want, what games he might have played while he was over there, where he got to go, what retro games he saw, anything you want to ask, be sure to write in. And with that, Noah, I'm going to let you take the feedback section for the first time in what, 4 or 5 weeks?
Holy cow. All right. This is probably one of my favorite parts of every show because it is consistently exciting and fun to hear from the people out there who listen to and or watch our show. Thank you so much. You're the ones who make this so much fun for everybody at NF Magazine and for those of us directly involved with the podcast. We really appreciate it. If you want to do if you want to contribute feedback of your own, feel free to leave us a comment under this video over on our YouTube channel, or just email us, show@nfmagazine.com. First up, let's get into email. And I have a different computer, so scrolling is a little bit different in this one. And I just totally scrolled to the top by accident. All right, so Nicholas is our first email. Let's see what he has to say. Thanks for all you do to cover and comment on Nintendo. I have 2 questions for you guys today. Number 1, with the recent anniversary of the Nintendo 64, what games for the system are your personal favorites? I will list my personal top 10 here and then leave it up for your discussion. So here are Nicholas's top 10, and I see he pulls Noah by adding in additional ones as his number 10 is Star Fox 64, and then 8. There's no 9. Number 8 is Banjo-Kazooie, 7 Perfect Dark, 6 Majora's Mask, 5 Super Smash Brothers. I bet you're wondering where those other ones are. Number 4 Mario Kart 64. Number 3 GoldenEye 007. Number 2 Super Mario 64 is number 1 game. As with many people on Nintendo 64 libraries, is Ocarina of Time. Honorable mention is Diddy Kong Racing and Star Wars Rouge Squadron, or Rogue Squadron. He actually wrote it correctly. But I love to say Rouge Squadron because that misspelling just cracks me up. Evan, your personal favorite Nintendo 64 games?
I don't know if I can list the top 10, but before I do, I was probably my mistake copying and pasting the email. I may have mistakenly deleted his number 9, so sorry about that, Nicholas. But I have a lot of the same picks here. Ocarina of Time, by far, that's one of my favorite games of all time. Super Mario 64. I've spent so many hours with GoldenEye 007 and Perfect Dark playing that together with friends. I mean, this was the first system that you actually played with 4 people, and it was before internet really took over the console market, so it was so much fun. Star Fox 64. I would definitely add in Wave Race 64. I played that a ton. Blast Corps, I love to play. And then on top of like Star Wars Rogue Squadron, which was awesome, I loved playing that. I really, really enjoyed it, and I just got the chance to play this a couple of weeks ago, WWF WrestleMania 2000. I really love the WWF wrestling games for Nintendo 64 and spent a lot of time doing multiplayer and playing those.
For me, off the top of my head, definitely Blast Corps. I really loved Majora's Mask. I didn't like Ocarina of Time as much, but I loved Majora's Mask. I also, out of this list, loved GoldenEye 007 and, of course, Super Smash Brothers. Put tons of hours in those games at gaming parties. And also, Xena, Warrior Princess, Talisman of Fate was hilarious. And I bet it must look so bad now if we go back and play it now. But it was a fantastic and hilarious party game for friends. And also, I think it was Gauntlet Dark Legacy or just Gauntlet Legends, one of the two. I can't remember which one it was. Also a ton of fun to play. I loved all the multiplayer games the most. I think what made me sad about the Nintendo 64 was there were no true RPGs on it that I really loved. And I had just come off of the Super Nintendo and having so many RPGs I loved in that. And the Nintendo 64 is just missing RPGs. Tragically, and I don't call Legend of Zelda games RPGs as much as Nintendo loves to call them RPGs. So that was what I was kind of missing, and that's the genre that I try to flip to, but I wasn't playing RPGs on the system because they weren't there. But what I loved was the multiplayer. And Blast Corps probably is the first thing that pops to my mind. Wave Race, also another one that I just loved. Those just really blew my mind. And as much as I loved Mario 64, Banjo-Kazooie took all that concept of collecting a 3D hub world, great music, graphics, took it to the next level. So I also definitely love that one.
I'll have to add in another sports game that I really enjoyed was the King Griffey game for Nintendo 64. I spent a lot of time playing that against people and then doing the season modes and everything. I'm someone who actually misses Nintendo's sports output. They also did, I believe it was NBA Courtside with Kobe Bryant, which wasn't the greatest game, but it was cool to see Nintendo kind of enter that market in the Nintendo 64 era.
And as it turns out, Nicholas's next question ties into his first one. What Nintendo 64 games have you never played, but would love to go back and play for the first time? For me, there are two games like this, Conker's Bad Fur Day and Ogre Battle 64, Person of Lordly Caliber. Evan?
I've never played Conker's Bad Fur Day. I've never played Banjo Kazooie. So there's a lot of rare games. I think I was kind of burnt out on rare once I played Jet Force Gemini. Is that right? And was just
Mm-hmm.
like, this is not good. At least that's what 13 or 14-year-old Evan thought. It's been a long time since I played it, but I just totally couldn't get into those games. So those are two that kind of come to the top of my head.
It's funny you mentioned that because I feel like that was the game I was going to go to was Jet Force Gemini because I got it, I think, or I rented it, and I couldn't get into it. But it's a game that I feel like I should go back to and try. I rented Ogre Battle 64, and I was just not digging the tile-based, turn-based strategy, and I couldn't get into it then. So it's hard to imagine that I would love Fire Emblem so many years later. So I wonder, much like Evan was saying, how our experiences today would color some of the games that we blew off in the past and we thought weren't that great when we were kids. Pokemon Snap, that is a game that I played, and I'm sure that I'd love it as much today as I'd loved it then. That was one of my other 64 games. That's something I'm sure my appreciation of has not changed, and I wish they would make another Pokemon Snap, but nope, hasn't happened. But yeah, Jet Force Gemini I'd like to try, and maybe Ogre Battle. I don't know, since I seem to have found a desire for tile-based strategy games. Next up, we have an email from Axel Troxler, who wrote, I went to a video game expo over the weekend in Prague, and there was a pretty important Nintendo booth there, so I managed to try out all of the upcoming Wii U games. It was pretty much the E3 lineup, so I'd like to share my impressions with you. I'll skip Captain Toad because it plays the same as Super Mario 3D World's levels, so nothing surprised me there. The first game that did surprise me was Kirby and the Rainbow Curse. The game is played entirely through the gamepad's touchscreen, and it is much trickier than I expected. Simply getting through the levels was easy enough, but I could tell that I was missing tons of secrets and collectibles along the way, so I have a feeling that this game will be very interesting for completionists. And that claymation art style looks gorgeous, a very good fit for Kirby. Smash Wii U was one of the biggest stars of the show, and wow, going from the 3DS to those full HD TV screens is quite a shock in the best of ways. The amount of detail in both the character models and the stages is very impressive, and I was happy to see tons of kids playing and laughing, even without really knowing what they were doing. This is a game that could spawn a new generation of Nintendo fans. I also played several games of Splatoon. I'm so jealous of that. And it's much deeper than I imagined. It requires a lot of teamwork, and the more I played, the more strategies I discovered. And again, everyone very quickly got it. Kids, teenagers, and adults alike. I was a bit skeptical about that game's potential before, but now I'm starting to think it could become a true esports game in the same league as Smash. Finally, Bayonetta 2 blew me away. The action is so fluid. Controlling Bayonetta becomes second nature after only a few seconds. I felt like I was possessed. Whichever buttons I pushed, I pulled off awesome combos, and it always felt right. I'm now even more hyped, and I'll definitely pick up this one on day one. And last but not least, Amiibo were on display, and a Nintendo representative told me that those were the actual final models, not prototypes. Samus, in particular, is beautifully detailed. Axel Droxler.
And what's cool about Axel Droxler is he actually sent us pictures in the email. And I have to say, the Samus amiibo was the one that I was kind of eyeballing and thinking about picking up beforehand. And his pictures make it really hard not to go over to Amazon and pre-order right away. But I still want to like physically hold one or see them with my own eyes. But they do look really great.
And Axel, I just have to say how jealous I am of you that you had a true and fantastic Nintendo experience at your gaming convention while there was none to be had whatsoever in Tokyo freaking Game Show, where Nintendo is located, not even present. I saw a much better and much more fulfilling Nintendo booth at the Penny Arcade Expo. at the Penny Arcade Expo. It had basically, when I went, the same games from the E3 booth. It was just really great to play Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze and to see Wonderful 101 on display and just to have the opportunity to play all those, not at Tokyo Game Show. So just keep that in mind. Nintendo's presence at Tokyo Game Show, if this is a highlight for you and you're a hardcore Nintendo fan, it's spotty. Nintendo's sometimes there, usually not. So, I wish I'd gone to Axel Droxler's game convention instead. That's what I have to say. All right, Vampire Jekyll is our next email. Vampire Jekyll wrote in, it should be well known that Nintendo's fellow console competitors, Microsoft and Sony, both have services that offer free games as part of their respective subscription services. Microsoft has Games with Gold, and Sony has PlayStation Plus. I remember a while back, maybe even as far back as the Heartcast days, which is a previous podcast that Evan and I hosted, that there was a discussion on the prospect of Nintendo offering a similar service. It may not be obvious to some, but Nintendo actually does offer a service similar to these, Club Nintendo. I know Club Nintendo has been around for ages, and many Nintendo fans already know about this, but I feel there's been a lack of spotlight on this overlooked feature. Nintendo offers a rotating selection of games each month or so in exchange for coins, which are earned through the purchase and registration of select Nintendo products. In many ways, this service could be considered superior to the competition. Fans get to keep the games forever, and there is no subscription fee. In addition, the service recently increased the number of games available each month. It seems that Club Nintendo is shying away from offering physical goods and instead seems to be focusing on games. Do you think Nintendo may be shifting this service in order to compete with Games with Gold and PlayStation Plus? And if so, what do you think of this strategy? What kind of potential does it have, Vampire Jekyll? Evan?
I don't think Club Nintendo comes anywhere close to Games with Gold and PlayStation Plus for numerous reasons, actually. The first one, you talk about the free game equivalents. To get the 150 to 200 coins is basically the equivalent of registering anywhere from 3 to 4 to possibly 5 games, and if you do some of the surveys, you could get a bump in 10 coins to get one of those free games. So you're looking at like $150 possibly, while Games with Gold and PlayStation Plus are about $50 per year for the subscription free, and you're getting free games every month. And then I think the big thing is just with Nintendo, Games with Gold and PlayStation Plus are tied into their subscription services, and that's tied into your ID for those consoles, while Club Nintendo is separate from your Nintendo Network ID. And you can link those accounts together, but they're different web interfaces and stores and everything. So there's not any way that these are streamlined together. And then finally, Club Nintendo has nothing to do with Nintendo's online presence. So with Games with Gold and PlayStation Plus, and really it should be Xbox Live Gold member, is the fact that you're getting online features, whether that's voice chat just through the console, whether it's better matchmaking with your game console, stuff like that. So I'm not someone that doesn't think that Club Nintendo could be morphed into something that's competing, but I don't think in any way, shape, or form that it really comes close to what those services offer. And while, yes, you do get to keep the games, I feel like that's a small price, especially when the games that you're getting on Club Nintendo is usually old virtual console games that have been out 20 years, while with Games with Gold and PlayStation Plus, at some point you're getting brand new games, brand new indie games, and you're getting full retail releases.
Wow, Evan. So I have two initial comments. First of all, Vampire Jekyll, I thought that was a fantastic email and a really great discussion topic, because when I read it earlier in the week, I was like, wow, this would be a really cool thing to talk about on the show. And Evan, you did a really good job. For better or worse, I don't know how to say it, dismantling. It's the word that comes to mind. Dismantling the suggestion that Club Nintendo even compares. But I have to say that I kind of agree with you, because the price that you have to pay, it's kind of dependent upon... Evan lives in a crime zone, by the way. No,
I'm sorry.
Evan's the one in the crime zone. I am safe in Denver. My friend in Japan, one of the reasons that he said he was lamenting coming back from Japan is because it's so safe. People are so trusting there. When I was at malls, young girls just leave their purses full of their money because they don't use credit cards there. They use just all cash and just wander off way out of sight of the table with their purse on, because she was claiming that table, but nobody's going to steal things. And my friend's like, people kill each other in America. Did you know that 4 people in Denver died alone last week? I read it in the paper. And it's just like, but I'm still alive. So is your family and all your friends. And I think he's just gotten into this mindset that Japan is so incredibly safe that nothing bad ever happens. And do we really live in a horrible, horrible place? I don't think so, Evan. Anyways, you distracted me with your siren. But
oh, my siren. I'm sorry. I'll turn it off now.
People are calling the ambulance. Get that guy off the podcast. But you have to have games to purchase, first of all, to even earn coins. So you have to have games that are actually released. Then there have to be games that you actually want. And then you have to hoard coins not knowing what's actually going to be available from one month to the next and think like, well, should I spend my money on this or not? I definitely think you have a compelling point about being able to keep something, but as Evan mentioned, it's system specific and you won't be able to go from one system to the next, even if you could potentially purchase the same game over and over in unique and individual purchases from one system to the next, and that's just kind of lame. So it is nice that we have something like that, but like Evan said much more eloquently than I did, I believe it could be greatly improved, built upon. The foundation is there, but Nintendo needs to step it up and do something similar to what it's doing for people with their 3DSs. Provide more control, more choices and options to its fans and customers. Let them choose whether or not they want to acquire Club Nintendo coins and then spend that on Club Nintendo purchases, or maybe there's also a subscription fee that gives you a set number of coins every month, and maybe stuff doesn't rotate in and out, and it becomes more like the other services, but it offers that awesome Nintendo goodness that's only available from Nintendo because there's just so many cool franchises, great games, and nifty little thingamabobs that we could get that are Nintendo only, but are still limited. So yeah, the ball's in Nintendo's court.
And I think Vampire Jekyll does a great job bringing up the idea of making Club Nintendo a competitor, and it doesn't. Nintendo will always do things differently, so it's not going to be the exact same way. But I think the biggest problem right now is just the fact that the user interface for this would be so confusing to your average consumer of, what is Club Nintendo? It's not my Nintendo Network ID to get online or to purchase stuff, but it's this totally different kind of survey-based area where you can reclaim games. And I hope Nintendo, whether it does away with the Club Nintendo name or not, finds a better way to make all of these parts work together and create some synergy there, because it could be a really cool service that more people would utilize.
We are now going to jump into comments that were posted below last week's episode. Weston M. wrote, my favorite NF magazine cover, I think I'll go with Shantae and the Pirate's Curse because I love the color scheme and the art used for it. It reminds me of volume 284 of Nintendo Power. So it kind of has short-term nostalgia for me. Good choice, Weston. I totally agree.
Did you check out the new theme? Lucas was on a couple of weeks ago to announce the Shantae and the Pirate's Curse cover.
Yeah. Yeah, it looks fantastic.
Awesome.
Next up, from the Seventh Experiment. Honestly, I don't have enough games in my Wii U to really need to use the folders. However, if I were to need to, I'd probably end up using your idea of making for eShop games, downloaded retail games, and VC games. Also, I just got Super Smash Bros. Yesterday. I tried it out, and it feels great. I was surprised that I enjoyed Smash Run as much as I did. Yeah, the reviews have been ripping that apart, haven't they? Seventh Experiment continues. I also made a Mii fighter featuring my Mii, and I made her into a gunner. When I tried playing with her, I ended up liking her moves very much. I'm so excited to try out all the other characters, as I have only very briefly tried out Robin, the Mii fighter gunner, Sheik, and Charizard. About Hyrule Warriors, I absolutely love the game, but something I don't think mentioned last week is that I feel like the main storyline is really, really short. Too short. Despite this, I still love the game. Seventh Experiment.
It's really cool, Seventh Experiment, to hear that you're liking Hyrule Warriors, and hopefully you can keep the impressions of Smash Brothers 3DS coming, and I'm curious if you're going to pick it up on Wii U as well.
Yeah, that's what I really want to hear from everybody out there who has made the leap into Super Smash Brothers for 3DS, for Nintendo 3DS. Has that satisfied you? Has it made you hungry even more for the Wii U version, or has it actually made you think, you know what? The Wii U version may be flashing pretty, but I like this version a lot, and I'm not sure I need the other version. Let us know for next week's show. Next comment from Nintendo Dude GCN. Great solo episode, Evan. I sure hope you're right about an upcoming wave of Wii U announcements. We need to hear about Captain Toad and Smash Wii U soon. The end of the year is really approaching fast. I also like your theory of a surprise game announcement. I also agree that we really need a more general Nintendo Direct soon. I think that the timing will be perfect for one after Smash 3DS releases. My favorite NF cover is actually the very first one, featuring Fire Emblem Awakening. I also
Good
really like
choice.
the Mario and Luigi cover because of the art style. I haven't heard too many comments about that one, surprisingly. Planning on getting Smash 3DS, and Hyrule Warriors should be arriving in the mail for me anytime now. I'll be sure to give some short impressions for you guys soon. Thank
Uh,
you.
yes, thank you so much, Nintendo Dude GCM. We like hearing back. We like hearing from you almost every week. It's really great.
Another person that we hear from frequently, and we always love to hear from, is Kisaki Project, who wrote in Hyrule Warriors Impressions. It is pretty fun. Not the best game, but it's exactly what you expect, for better or worse. It's button mashing fan service for Zelda fans. So if you can turn off your super critical side, Evan, and
Impossible.
just want
Impossible.
you didn't actually write Evan in there, listeners. And just want to see Zelda characters, you'll enjoy it. I've been doing co-op, which is a mixed bag. It seems that the resolution and frame rate take a hit when you co-op. On the plus side, the splitting up of the field between two people helps you do extra stuff like collecting gold sculptulas. Maybe that's why they couldn't get the online co-op to work. It all comes down to gold spiders. That's all.
I think he was more referring to the frame rate and resolution hit because I was watching some video about it and I talked about it last episode, Noah. It looks not so hot once you go into the split screen or split between the gamepad and the TV screen. Like, I'm not someone who can like spot from a distance like, oh, that's 60 frames per second, that's 30 frames per second, that's only 1080p, and no, that's only 980p. But like, I was watching video of two people playing together after watching single player, and it was just like, oh my goodness, this does not look so hot now that you have it kind of spitting out images to two screens. So I would think that that issue, though, would be resolved by people having two different consoles dedicated to their own screen, and you're just connecting online. But I am by no means an engineer or game designer, so I could be wrong, and that could be part of the problem.
The comment continues, Evan, I think you would enjoy running through Hyrule Warriors single player once this game is cheap. I'd say hold up for it to be $20 to $40 and play through it on your own. I know Koei Tecmo wants to do more collaborations. How hilarious would it be? Would Mario Warriors be? That would be hilarious. I'd totally get that. That'd be awesome. Next up, old school 1990s. It has been an amazing week for Nintendo gaming. I have racked up over 40 hours on Curtain Call since its release. There is so much great content in this game. Evan, if you bought this game and were somehow disappointed, I would be shocked.
Don't test me. Don't test me.
Okay, that totally threw me off. I am looking forward to hearing Noah's impressions, assuming he picked it up, which womp womp, Noah did not. Also, I've been playing Hyrule Warriors. Adventure mode has been the most fun for me. It is a very unique way to play as different characters and to use their various weapons. Impa is the most fun to use for me, after Link, of course. And finally, I picked up Smash yesterday. It is very well done, but I feel like it is merely an appetizer for the main course that is the Wii U version.
Oh, that's cool. Old School was already ahead of the game there and gave you his what he thinks about the Wii U version owning the 3DS copy.
You must have been saying, oh, there's no doubt that Noah is purchasing this game. He's had it pre-ordered. Did you say something like that, Evan?
I said that you're such a big rhythm game fan, I wouldn't be surprised if you picked it up on your trip to Japan and stuff. And I thought that you were a pretty big fan of the first one. I couldn't remember correctly, but I remember you thinking of that title fondly.
Yeah, and that is true. And I don't know, it's just like Japan changed me, man. I downloaded these demos and things just changed. But that is all we have for feedback. So that means it is back to Evan for a wrap-up of this evening's show.
Yes, thank you so much for that fantastic feedback, and I'm sure you'll have a lot to say now that Noah's back, so I can't wait to go through that next week. But to stay on this episode, episode 38, No Returns, I want to thank you so much for joining. Don't forget you can subscribe to us on YouTube, and there's also an NF Show playlist. But you can also subscribe to us and review us on iTunes. And yes, we are aware that once again there are iTunes problems. We're not exactly sure what's going on. For some reason, it keeps removing us from the U.S. web store for iTunes. So we're trying to get to the bottom of that, and we'll let you know when that's fixed. It's really frustrating for us both, and we apologize to any of you out there that like your audio version through iTunes. But in the meantime, you can get the audio version directly from www.nfmagazine.com. Finally, if you can't get enough of us just here on the NF Show, you can follow us on Twitter. Noah is at This Is Noah. I am at Evan Campbell. And most importantly, the official NF Magazine Twitter account is at Nintendo Force. But that wraps it up here for episode 38, No Returns. We got to hear so many great things about Noah's adventure over in Japan, visiting Tokyo, seeing Shibuya, seeing Akihabara. I'm sure he's going to have more tales in the future and talk more about Phoenix Wright. How much more do you have to go in Phoenix Wright? Do you have any idea?
Oh, I have a ways to go.
Okay. And we'll see if Noah can kind of defend against all of this praise for Theatrhythm Final Fantasy Curtain Call, or whether he'll succumb to your rave reviews and pick up the game to talk about it. He's making faces like he doesn't understand what I'm talking about. Japan has changed you.
There's like way too much ramen. I think that's what it is. Too much ramen. Really, too much ramen. Too much noodles, too much sushi. If I see another sushi again in a week or two, it'll be too soon. I'm done with that.
There you have it. Too much ramen and too much sushi for Noah.
It's so true. There is zero cuisine variety out there. Zero.
Well, once again, thank you so much for joining us here on the NF Show. We'll be back here same time, same date next week. Bye, everyone.
Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye.